believe it or not, what you guys are working on right now is the cutting edge of technology. And, when I graduated from here in 01, and I'll talk about it a little bit later on, Dr. Delomo was actually telling us how basically mobile phone technology was going to change. And at the time, it didn't even seem real. So, okay, you guys are looking at pizza. Why don't we let the pizza come in? I know how it goes, okay? So don't worry about it. Pizza's very interesting. Some guy talking, so. You guys want to start eating right now itself? No? Keep it up there. Yeah. But you guys will keep looking at it, right? So maybe you want to open it now. All right, so yeah, so what I'm going to talk to you about a little bit is how to grow your career. You know, I think that's probably most interesting to many of you. And if it's okay with you, I'll get started. So just a little bit about me. I'm a software development manager with the Department of Defense. What I do is, so I'm born here, so I'm a U.S. citizen, so I work for the U.S. Department of Defense. It's one of the requirements in order to get a job with the U.S. government. You have to be a U.S. citizen. I spent 17 years in R&D and program management, and basically what we do is large data analysis. I've heard the term. I work primarily with satellite imagery, as well as imagery collected from drones. And what I do is we do a lot of feature extraction, which means identifying all of the man-made features and also the nature-made features from it, and then we correlate that with reporting information to then basically come up with a prediction of where activities are going to happen. That's what I do. I manage a pretty large team of folks, and that's kind of what we work on. I also spent some time doing a few other things. Modeling and simulation. Command and control means basically tasking all of the missile systems and things like that. And of course, satellites and communication networks, right? I did my MS here in 2001, and I've got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Carnegie Mellon. I have 3 kids. They're ages of 14, 13, and 5. And yeah, just a little bit about myself. All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about really is when you think about your career, I try to tell people, think of it as a tree, okay? What that means is the foundation of your tree is really your morals, what your parents talk to you about. Your ethics is extremely important, okay? Your education, you're building upon that right now, okay? And then your interests. But what happens after that really is a matter of opportunity, as well as interest, and also those opportunities that are given to you. So if you think about it that way, just to use the analogy, if you will, you know, you have different branches because your career will actually go in different directions. You know, when I was in college with a degree in mechanical engineering, I never thought I'd be a software development manager. And along the way, all the other paths, some I willingly chose, and some were presented to me. You'll have different opportunities, but when you start looking at what you're growing over time, you're going to have exposure to different customers. You'll be working on different projects, and all along the way, you'll gain subject matter expertise. When you ask anybody, I used to do when I was in college, I used to ask people, how did you get to this point? You know, I was actually interested in aircraft, believe it or not, and I wanted to sell aircraft, like Boeings and Airbus and things like that. And I would ask people who were in that business, I'd say, how did you get to this point? And they would always look at me and they couldn't really explain how they got there. They would say, okay, I was in finance and I have a business degree, so you know nothing about planes, then why am I studying engineering, you know? So they would take it in these different routes. And I realize that even now, you know, 16 years after graduate school, if I look at where my path has gone, I realize that I've done a number of different jobs. I've probably held about 30 different positions in the last 16 years. And the trick is to make sure that every experience that you have is a two-way street. You're giving something up and you're getting something back. And what you can do is you can build all these experiences together as your tree begins to grow, so that at some point, hopefully, your branches will come together. And you can put all those experiences together. All right? Now, in order to grow a tree, you've got to have nutrients, okay? You've got to have room to grow. You know, you have to be in the right environment. and you have to have, most importantly, the ability to adapt. When I talk about this in terms of your career, when I talk about nutrients, I'm talking about really the opportunities. You may have an interest in doing something and working in a company, but if those opportunities are not presented to you, then there's only so far that you can go. Okay? When you talk about room to grow, this is very important. You know, I asked a guy once who was leaving where I was working. He was a very high up guy. He'd done really well in his career, and I said, you know, what's the key to success? And he said, pick the battles you can win. Actually, very good advice. So you may have an interest in doing something, okay, but everyone's against you. And you may say, no, I'm going to keep persevering. I'm going to do this because it's of interest to me. All right, that's probably not a battle you can win. All right, and if you ask about what is the key to success, when other people look at you and say, yeah, that guy's really successful, or that woman's really successful, I like what she's done. What you're going to find out is they didn't necessarily choose the hardest battles, but rather they chose the battles that they said, you know, I think I have a pretty good chance of getting this. All right, and that's important. Pick the battles you can win. All right, environment. Okay, in the time that I've been working, I've probably interviewed hundreds of people, and I've hired a number of people, and not everyone's going to be successful in every environment. Okay, and that's a very important feature. Okay, you may be very talkative. You may be somebody who likes to sit down and just work with the data. You know, if you're given a lot of data, you can do the analysis on it, produce a good, but you may not like talking to people. Okay, being in the wrong environment, somebody who's very, very talented just won't grow. So finding the right environment is extremely important. All right, it's a two-way street. Okay, there are also growth enablers. I'll talk about that a little bit. I won't just keep talking about trees, but I'm trying to give you an analogy here. Okay, and the most important thing is, as you grow in your career, you gain experience. And the most important thing is that experience is what you pay for. If you talk to business owners, they'll say, one thing I can't pay for is experience. All right, that's something you have to get. And importantly, to know how to take that experience and put it together so that you can make a statement about yourself and talk about what your possibilities are, that's the most important. We'll talk about that. So, you know, when you're sitting there as students, when I was sitting there as a student, I said, okay, what is my most ideal career? Ideally speaking, I'm studying this MS in Telecommunications. I'm going to get a job directly in communications. It's going to utilize everything that I've learned already on this program. And then I will get increasingly more difficult projects, more technically challenging projects in this same line. And I will keep going, okay? And so, you know, your tree might look like this, you know, very tall, right? Slender, not many branches like I showed you in the previous picture, right? And, you know, just going straight to the top. This is what everyone's ideal situation is. Your ideal picture. But in reality, what happens is you wind up with this kind of stuff, you know? If you can dim the lights, I can show you. This is like you see this tree, it's like growing on some rock somewhere, you know? Just turn the lights down, would you? Kind of romantic. Okay, so this, right? And other times what happens is, and this is very common, you talk to people who work in the investment banking spectrum, they'll say, yeah, you know, I'm doing quite well. But like me, there are 1,000 other people, okay? Or you have this kind of situation here, you know, which is basically, my career, I'm doing quite well in it, okay? But I started down this path, it seemed like a good path, and then what happened was economic forces caused me to shift a little bit, and now I'm in this other line. You talk to people that, you know, you think are doing really well, and you find out, like I told you, the guy that was selling planes, he's a CPA, and he got his degree in accounting. And now he's selling planes all around the world. In fact, it was the guy that, have you been to the National Air and Space Museum that's by the airport, the big one, with the big hangar inside of it? It's called the Udvar Hazy. So I talked to Hazy, okay? And he was the guy who was giving me that advice. So what they did was they started a company leasing aircraft. So they basically became the biggest buyers of aircraft in the world. They still are. They're a corporation. Because most airlines can't afford to buy their own plane. They can get the rest of the operation set up, but when each plane costs half a billion dollars, they have to lease them. So these guys started in the business of leasing aircraft, and that's why they made a ton of money, and they were able to basically donate a bunch of money to the Smithsonian. When you think about your career, you know, you don't want to do something like this. This banyan tree over here, okay? You don't want to basically, this is what I call the career student. The person who goes and gets a degree in one thing and then tries something out, then goes back to school, and goes back to school again. The stage that you're at right now, where you're getting an education, okay, is not an opportunity that you can repeat. There's a saying that's you cannot go home twice, okay? And you can talk to your professor or he'll tell you the same thing. You can't keep on going back to school. Your opportunity is right now to learn, then make the most of it right now. But this idea that I'm going to go and work for a little while and go back to school again, what happens is you'll find out that your growth is actually stimulated. You don't go up very far, okay? Don't do this, okay? And also, I don't know what that is, okay? So these are not good career options for you, okay? If you find yourself all alone, you know, you're the leader among nobody, that's a terrible option, okay? That baobab tree in Africa, that's a bad idea, okay? So let me talk about a little bit about, enough of the trees, okay? Let's talk a little bit about things that you should shoot for, okay? Prior to coming to this program, actually, I ran my own business. So a little bit about me. I got my degree from Carnegie Mellon. I got a good number of good internships with a number of companies. I worked for a jet engine company. I worked for a computer company. I worked for a company that's like the Gartner Group. If you've heard about them, they make recommendations to big IT purchasing shops around the world. Then I went back to Silicon Valley where I grew up. And I actually was very interested in selling things. As you maybe can tell, I like to talk. So I was interested in selling, but I didn't know what I wanted to sell. I mean, I knew engineering. I was 2 years out of school. But I didn't have a product I was really that interested in. So what happened was through some connections, I connected with some people who were working directly for venture capitalists. What happens is the venture capitalists would fund a company, give X amount of money to a company, and then would turn around and look at us and say, these guys are not going to be the ones to get me my return on investment. They're not going to be able to take this company in IPO. So you need to get these people from this company and go bring them home. Okay? And so I'll tell you, I've had a lot of fun over the last 16 years, okay? And some really sage advice that I got very early on was, don't let money drive your decisions, okay? And I'll be completely honest with you on this. I have lots and lots of friends that are very, very successful with large companies of their own. And the same thing that they say to me, they said, you know, Bhaskar, one of the cliche things that I can tell you is it's really hard to find good help. And that is absolutely true. I can tell you, running an organization, I find too many people that are interested in money. And that's not interesting to me. I won't hire them. Okay? What I'm looking for, and what every company is looking for, and we can talk about this a little bit more, is are you really interested in what we do? Okay? So it doesn't have to be your passion. Okay? But it has to be something that drives you. Because here's the deal. Once you sign up with a company or an organization and you realize what your salary is, the rest of it is, let's be honest here, it's the same thing, 8 hours a day. There are going to be some great opportunities to learn something, but the reason they're paying you is they have something to do that they don't want to do themselves. So you've got to do that, okay? And if you're only driven by money, as you'll find out with a lot of people, okay, then it will quickly lose its appeal. And you'll find yourself basically getting tired all the time, all right? And what happens is employers can see that, okay? So don't let money drive the decisions, okay? This is very interesting, okay? You know, academia is years ahead of the technology base, okay? When I was a student, when we were students, Dr. DeLoma was telling us some crazy stuff, totally crazy talk. We had phones looking like, when I was growing up, a phone looked like this. When I was in this program, phones looked like, what do you think?
Yeah,
This one, the Nokia?
Yeah, the Ericsson and Nokia.
Yeah, right here, okay? This is what phones look like. Okay, now you guys might be too young to even know what we're talking about here. Or maybe you're familiar with these phones. So definitely in India, they have phones like this. Even, not now, but just a couple years back, right? Dr. DeLoma was giving us some really weird advice because at the time he was running a company, he was working for a bunch of cellular companies, large cellular providers. And his little company was actually doing fine-tuning of RF networks. So he was telling us, like, you know, the reason that they're going to give you free nights and weekends on your mobile phone plan is that they want you to leave your phone on because they're keeping track of your movements. And ultimately what they were going to do is they're going to send you marketing information. That's what he was saying, right? He was kind of saying this on the side of his class, and a lot of people were like, you know, because it wasn't a reality, okay? Who knew that touchscreens were going to become a reality? And we would do away with keyboards altogether, right? And we're sitting around with basically a computer in our pockets, right? And this is absolutely true. I've got a friend of mine who's a venture capitalist over in China, and what he does is basically he purchases land. He purchases land before developers purchase land. And one of the things that I found really interesting that he's working on, or he's actually investing in, is they're looking at, I got interested because it was satellite imagery of cities And what they're doing is they're applying this concept to it as if water is flowing through the city. Okay? They're looking for places where there's a lot of traffic and there's a minimal traffic. And they're applying that back to traffic patterns. Do you know why? What they want to do, and you may have seen this already in some places, like in airports, okay, is if you were to go to the stores, if you on the corners, they want to basically sell real estate for storefronts. But instead of having companies put their billboards up permanently, they're all LCD screens. And what they're doing is they're doing the traffic analysis to say to Starbucks, okay, put your shop here just between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. And between 12 and 5, make it a pizza shop. Or do something else with it. So basically you bring your merchandise in, press a button, it changes. Why? There's that much money to be made. By day, people are going in this direction, and by evening, they don't want coffee on the way back, right? How many times have you seen that? Right? People will be going in one direction looking for coffee on the way back. Who wants coffee? But if I can get some food on the way home, right? Done deal. So what they're doing is they're selectively choosing their real estate investments based upon location. So, and where it's taking them is very interesting. Investing in satellite imagery, investing in the analysis of that satellite imagery, and investing also basically in traffic patterns to figure out the most optimal location to put in a business. It's brilliant, okay? So, all of this you're learning now. And what you'll do going forward is, as I call it, you'll be riding the technology wave. The sad fact is that after you leave school and you take a job somewhere, you don't really grow in knowledge. You sort of kind of slowly decline, your knowledge base declines. Because again, you're getting paid to do something that somebody else doesn't want to do themselves, right? They need help with. So if you're in a lucky position, you'll continue growing. But typically what happens is you shore up all this knowledge in graduate school, and as time goes on, that knowledge kind of whittles away. Now, the wave that I got from this program, I actually was able to ride for about 10 years, believe it or not. And some of the stuff Dr. Delomo told me was like decades ahead of his time. So that was a really good experience. So, definitely ride the knowledge wave. All right, you know what I've done for the last 16 years? Change management. You've heard the topic all the time. Companies, organizations, they keep on saying this has been happening as economic forces happen. They say, you know what, we need to change with the times. We need to be able to change to meet our market pace. All right. Now, what's interesting is if you just Google change or change management, what you'll find out is that it's really three different things that are involved. There's people, processes, and technologies. What are people? The people themselves that are in the organization, the potential clients, the customers, right, the competitors. Processes, that's what they do on a day-to-day basis. You guys, how many of you guys have seen how people operate in the government? Right? You've been to the airport, right? And you go and you go through customs, right? And then there's another guy 20 feet away and he's checking what this guy just got, right? Why is that? Why are they doing that? Because maybe one guy might have slipped through the cracks and run out the door, right, with just one piece of, just not all the, basically not all the proper documents. So to prevent from that in the future, they said, okay, we'll put another guy there after 20 feet. And after 20 feet, another people, come on, how many people have been to the Mumbai airport, right? There's all these people standing around well, what are they doing, right? Okay, these people are there because there's a process in place, okay? And that process is, they want to basically have 99%, they want to be as secure as possible. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, somebody will say, well, then what we need to do is put checkpoints every 20 feet, and we'll keep installing a person. And then the last bit is technology, all right? Now, just a show of hands, what do you think corporations and organizations invest in first? Come on, guys, you're all asleep here. You're looking at the visa, come on. So if people, process, technology, what's the easiest one to invest in? What do people do? You're all here, what do you guys here to study? Technology, right? So every company will invest in technology first, okay? But that's not where change happens, all right? The change actually happens in the people, okay? Changing mindsets, very, very difficult to do. And then the processes themselves, okay? So one thing, if I can give you an advice, I'm going to tell you this: embrace change, okay? Because that's really where you're going to have the greatest growth, okay? Let me ask you this: as engineering students, are you resistant to change, or do you like change? Probably as students, you're finding every semester you're changing what you're studying, right? And you have to get used to that, okay? Those of you that can embrace change, you're going to do the best. It's a fact. Nobody wants somebody working for them and there are many people like this. that'll say, you know, I like my job the way it is, I don't want anything to change. Many people get into this. If you find yourself getting into that rut, it's up to you to make a change happen. Okay? So one thing I always tell people is, every few years, even if you like your job, go out and apply for other things. Just to see what you're working on. Also, as an opportunity to see what's going on. Companies keep all this information proprietary, but you know what an interesting thing is? When you're interviewing for a job there, they'll tell you quite a bit about what they're doing, right? They're trying to get you to come and join their team, right? It's kind of like, I wouldn't give you an analogy, but basically, it's somebody wants something from you, so they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves. So that which would be otherwise proprietary, you'll find out about. And you can gauge from that how you're doing, okay? All the while that you're working, you're going to be studying on the side. You have to do that. If you don't, well, you'll find out one day you'll wake up and realize the whole world is fast and running. Okay, you want to be in front of that, all right? The other thing I'm going to tell you is, if this is at all interesting to you, now's the time to start a company. How many of you guys want to start your own company? Good. Good. And the rest of you got to go work for these guys, right? Okay. All right. No. This is the opportunity. Okay. How many of you guys are walking out of here with a lot of debt? Okay. Debt is there, right? But you're not completely up a creek if you don't pay that debt immediately, right? Probably the best thing that I ever did was start my own business. Because later on I went to work for a company. Small companies, larger companies, I work in the government. But the bottom line is, I know how all transactions happen. Okay, I know what's interesting to companies, what's interesting to organizations, and I learned that firsthand. They can't teach entrepreneurship. Do not get an MBA in entrepreneurship. It's a waste of money. Okay, entrepreneurship is all about your experience. All right? So if you can, start a business. It's the best education you'll ever get. You've done a great thing by coming here, getting a degree from here. The next step is to get that practical experience. All right? So if you have the opportunity, start in anything. Just take a line. You don't know where it's going to go. If it fails, if the business fails, no worries. Okay, you learn many ways not to do it. And that experience is going to be invaluable. If you go to a company with a degree from here and a couple of internships, you can go to a company and say, okay, what do what they're going to say is, okay, great, you've studied all this stuff. How does it apply to my business? And you'll say, well, and you'll get some analogies. Having tried to run a business, you can say, look, I've looked at your business. This is where you currently stand. This is where your competition stands. And this is what you need to do to become even more profitable. And this is where I can help. You tell me, who do you want to hire? Okay? You want to be that person. So getting that experience is extremely important. So do that if you can. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was basically, don't overlook the little people, okay? Which sounds kind of cliche, but when I was growing up, there was a guy I used to call Uncle. He was in the community, and he went on to become a vice president of Intel, basically. And he told me, hey, listen, there's 3 things that you have to consider, okay? Always get to know the security guards. Okay? Always know the people in HR. These are the people that make the business run. The CEO is important, the engineers are important, the marketing team is important. But think about it, right? If the last people were the janitors. If the building isn't clean, nothing happens. If HR cannot bring the right people in, nothing happens. Okay? And the security guy, the guy at the door, and so I took that advice and I started making friends with all those people. Let me tell you, it's been great. Okay? So many things I can get done. I used to work for a very large company, a rocket manufacturer in Denver, and I can tell you, I went to learn all the security guards' names because I thought maybe I should come in handy, right? So one time what happened was an important client was coming in, and I had reserved a conference room. But what happened was a very high-ranking guy in the company and said, I need to meet here, just took the conference room. What were we going to do? The important client was coming in, that guy couldn't care. I called down to the security guards, and they said, hey, this big meeting was supposed to happen with a bunch of vice presidents in here. They left it, they decided to go to some other room, maybe mine, okay? They left it behind, and it already has food in it. So I told my boss, let's just go to this room. We went over there, meeting happened, everything was great. And he was looking at me like, how the hell do you know this? I've been working here for 16 years. You've only been here for 2 years. How do you know all this? These relationships come in really handy when you start your company, because all you guys are going to do that now, right? When you start your company, don't overlook the people that help you get there. It's a team, okay? And important in that is, have you heard of the concept of being a servant leader? You know what that is? You know the servant leader? Okay? Very, very important. Right now as students, hopefully you guys have humility, okay? Keep that humility. Remember what got you to this point. Being humble, being respectful of people that are older to you for sure, and also just being respectful of people in general, okay? This is extremely important. The people that you see later in life that are doing well, it's not because of the money that they make or the car that they drive. The ones that are doing well are the people that you say, you know, if that guy starts a company, I'm going to work for him. I don't care how much money he's paying me, how little money he's paying me. I'm going to go there. All right? Or if that person runs an organization, that person decides to run for political office, I'm going to join his team. Or her team. I should not wait. Everybody, okay? Those people that get to those positions, look at like recent guys that have basically taken over Microsoft and also at Alphabet, right? Why was the guy that was selected to run Google, Sundar, right? Why was he chosen? Do you remember the reviews on him? He worked his way up from the bottom, right? But he was one of those guys that got along with everybody. And that's what Sergey Brin and Larry Page were looking for. They were saying, look, we're here now. We started this company, but the people that we started with, they've all become quite wealthy. And we've lost touch with the people that are working. So let's go and find a way. We have to find somebody who knows all those people at the working level. Install that person, because then what happens is people will be loyal to the person, right? And they'll stick around. And that's what's going to change our image. So, it's something to consider. And that's it, okay?